Well, mistakes were made. So we need to move this to this side. So no big deal. Yeah, shouldn't be a problem. I think even the wires, if I don't wrap them, will be long enough to go from the switch across there and then to the pump on this side. The hose will just swap over. The inlet, I'll just swap those two. And the spray nozzle, I'll just have to adjust it so it angles that direction. So pretty easy fix. And we got to fix the strap here, add a strap here, and we should be solid. So let's knock that out. All right, the swap is done. Moved it from the right side to the left side. Pretty straightforward, not much adjustment needed to be done. I had to run the wires underneath that bar there. Swapped out the plugs. Those plugs are not really quite made for this situation, so they're starting to split because I did them out of just some cheap wood. My intention was always to make them out of some plastic, so I will be doing that pretty quick here, sooner than later. But otherwise, this is the rig, just moved over from that side to this side. Wiring was the only thing. I just had to run it underneath that bar to this side, but still pretty much out of the way. These are those plugs. See, they're already splitting. They just have to keep the water out, so it's not a huge deal, but it'll be a lot cleaner with either doing an aluminum or a plastic. If I buy a drill bit that fits this, then I'll do it in aluminum. If I have to do it by freehand, then I'm going to do it in plastic. So I just got to find the right thickness. Outside of that, spray nozzle's the same, and I just had to twist the 90-degree just from this side to this side and run the hose there, so all good there. I checked, there was no leaks. This is me from hosing down the top before I started, but there was no water in the hole, so that's a good thing. My prior one didn't leak at all, so hopefully this one won't either. But I think we're all good there. Now the only thing that I've got to do now is to repair the holes from the screws. So I'm going to do some plastic welding, and that'll also be the reason why I saved all those plugs and all the holes that I cut into the skiff in the beginning. I save all that plastic. But let me show you my rig for plastic welding. So this is my plastic welding repair kit. This same exact model, you get it from Harbor Freight, Chicago welding plastic welding kit, was the first purchase I bought after I bought my Tarpon Wilderness System Tarpon 140 kayak. That was my first kayak because it had a huge gash in the back keel where it had been worn through, and there's just a big old hole right there, crack. So the first thing I did was buy one of these and repaired it, and then I've had that thing for about 15 years. But I keep my plastic pieces. This is from my Hobie when I cut out a section, as well as my leftovers from this skiff. I keep all the shavings, all the plugs, so that I have them to be able to patch any of these holes that I have. And you can also see there, that's the actual build of these skiffs. It's about a 1/2 inch thick of plastic, and then you've got that foam, hard foam insulation underneath it, so you have about 1 inch there. But all I'm going to do is to seal up these holes, so I'll probably just use some of these shavings, heat this up. I've got a torch. I'll probably heat up this area just to get it warm, and then start using the iron to start pushing in these screws, the parts where it raised, because what I did is I didn't drill out these holes. I did a little pilot hole, but then I let the screws work their way in, self-tap, and then that pushed the plastic out. But that makes a lot better seal. But then it's got that ridge that I can just heat up and push back into the hole, and then fill with either the shavings or one of these plugs. So let's get working. So for the plastic welding, what you're trying to do is you're wanting to mix this plastic with the material plastic that you're going to bind it with. So you actually want to kind of make them mix, basically. So the way to do that is you need to heat this and that to the point where they're almost molten, so that they can combine. And once they can combine, then you get this back to one piece again. If you do it where it's not hot on one side and just put the a molten other part, it's not going to stick because they're not going to mix. So it's very important to heat both of them, get them very hot, then they should stick together, almost be gooey together. This I'm going to do add a little less of a heating because I can't get to the underside. You don't want to heat it too hot because it'll start sinking, and once it starts sinking, since you can't reach under to push it back up and let it cool down, it's just going to sag. So I'm just going to be very careful about that. Just get the top section heated up, get this on, and then start heating it. The way I'm going to start heating it is, usually I use a torch like this. This is what I use for searing food, like your steaks and stuff. That does a quick job of getting stuff really hot really quickly. But I've gotten a hair dryer, basically heat gun, that has a concentrator on it. So I'm going to use this, and this will be a little bit less heat impact right off the bat, so I could warm it up slowly and then be able to keep an eye on it till both of them are in the right condition, and then I could stick them together. Then I could use the iron to kind of mix them and get it flat how I want it, and then let it cool. The other stuff I have on hand is usually on my kayak, where it's just the top layer of plastic only. Anytime I get underneath it, I always like to have a spoon ready. So if I heat it too much, it starts sagging, I can go underneath and then hold it up until it hardens again using a spoon. And then if I'm getting out of hand, things are getting out of hand, I could just hit it with some water right away, and that'll just harden it right back up immediately. Also, when I'm done, this stuff, even after you stop taking the heat off, will keep cooking, and at a point where it'll be solid, but then after you take the heat away, then it'll start sagging. Before that happens, you can hit it with some water. That'll cool it down and harden it right away, so you don't have to worry about that. But this is kind of like my fire extinguisher, and this is just my support system, but I can't do it on here, so I'm not really going to use it. Yeah, so I think we've got everything ready to go, just waiting for that to heat up. All right, see if this is hot enough. Yep, it's smoking. So I could always just push everything in there and cover the hole, but I want to fill it a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and use a hair dryer, heat this up, push it down, create a little bit of a divot, and then start filling it in with the plastic. All right, I'm just hitting this one spot, get it nice and toasty. It's already moving, so I can see it's about ready. So I'm going to start throwing some plastic on there and then use the iron to meld it together. So you can see there's the hole there. I'm just going to use the iron. I hit this area with the hair dryer already, so it's somewhat heated already, so it's not going to take much, but I'm going to start pushing around, heating up and filling the hole at the same time, making basically kind of like a well. And I could stop right there and be done with it, but I'm going to push it down a little bit farther and add some material on top of it, and then get those two combined. There we go. That whole area is soft. So now I'm going to get one of these pieces, and that's going to be my filler. And I can just heat it down. And this little piece there was just the foam, so I don't want that. And then I just want to heat around the edges to get the plastics to meld together. Bubbling up a little bit, that's good. Dropping it down there. Get those edges. I'm going to be sanding down, so it's not that important. These edges, it's mainly that center I want nice and hot, just like that. All right, we're all done there, so I'm going to let that cool off. Come back, hit it with the sandpaper. That'll reduce all this extra slag along the edges and then clean it up quite a bit. So wait for it to cool off. All right, I went ahead and sanded down the humps and got rid of the excess, so now it's nice and flush, and it's definitely not going to leak. Got all those dirts and grime in there, but I can live with that. That's not a problem. I can go ahead and put a clean layer over the top and then grind it down, but I'm not really interested in doing that. So this is done, so let's start working on the hatches, and I want to get those restricting straps put in. Next we're going to work on replacing these limiters with web strapping. So I'm just going to take the screws out. I'm going to super glue the area that the screw is going to go through so it doesn't split, and then just bolt it there and right there. So let's do that real quick. I've got the front hatch works good at propping it up just where I want it. The reason for doing this in general is I don't want all that pressure on these hinges and that plastic areas where it's bolted into, because without that backing there, it goes that far and then it's all pressure on this hinge and the plastic, and I don't want that, especially if something happened where it got pushed on or it's bouncing in the waves. I want a limiter that just stops that from happening. So that's the reason why. All right, for the strapping, I'm going to use this little punch, make a hole in the center there, and then could start the screw, and then I'm going to kind of douse the around it with super glue, and that's just to bind all the fibers on front and back so it stays kind of more solid, just as a reinforcement. Otherwise it's just going to split. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and then I'll get that one mounted up here, and then I'll do this bottom one. All right, there you go. It's all screwed in there. I think it'll be a little bit more reliable than the wire. And that'll keep the pressure off, stays open. Especially my concern with this is the cast netting bait, dumping it in here and having to deal with this door. So I want to make sure that it opens, stays open, and then doesn't put stress on those hinges there. So good to go. And this is locked shut. And now let's do this guy. All right, I think the hatches are done. We got this hatch. Nice. This hatch, bam, strapped. And this hatch, bam, strapped. So we're solid there. I'm happy. That makes them usable instead of what, pow, that one kirk kirk kirk. All right, good lead to go, and good lead to go. All right, I think we're done. Oh, I gotta take this off since I'm never gonna use that. Now the only thing let's do is do a test run and sign off, and this will be done. All right, we've got the last piece of the puzzle for the Livewell. This is the actual drain tube with the rubber stopper. Well, it's not a stopper, but adapter. So that's going in there. Tight fit. So now I just need to cut it down. This comes off, so I think I'm going to pretty much have it somewhat similar to the same height, so right around there, and I just need enough clearance. And the good thing about it is I don't care if it overflows, because if it overflows it just goes here and it drains out the back, so not really a big deal. So I think I'll use this cap as the height, so I'll have it right about there will be the drain. Cap will go there to the top, and all will work together. Okay, let me chop it up, and there you go, perfectly to the top there, but yet closes nicely. It actually pins it so that tube can't fall out because it's pressing against the top tab here. So it's a press fit. So that's perfect. Now we're done. All right, so I basically just drill a hole in the center line that I want using this is just a little bit too big, but it's what I got. Then I'm going to use my multi-tool to just cut straight down on either side. And that makes our slot. And there's our little notch there. I think it should be deep enough. And slides right in, and there we go. We are notched. So 3 more and we're done. We are done notching, everything has a home. So basically the importance is keeping this clear, but also is being able to pull the rods as needed without getting hung up. So what would happen before, if I had these rods just loose, this could get underneath that, and then you can't get this rod out, moving it over and so forth. But now got a notch, every single one pops up without interference. So very important on the flats, because as you're going along, you see something, you don't have a lot of time, especially because I'm deploying the anchor. I need to grab the right lure on the right rod, and then I need to be able to just boom and cast just like a gunslinger. So this is my holster, and I want it to be as smooth and naturally set as possible. But that's very nice, including the fly rods notched, so it just fits in that little handle partition and locks in there and ain't going anywhere. And there we go. Nice.